you think? I have to
I
wonder.
think he has become the new Lance Ito, or I don't know, William Ginsburg. Remember him from the Monica Lewinsky lawyer? I thought that picture going around of him on the cover of InStyle magazine was a joke at first.
I actually thought it was Photoshop too. It turns out it was not. Fun fact: he went to my high school here in New York, and so he's also on the cover of my alumni magazine. So I can't escape the Fouch wherever I go. But let's start in with that. I mean, we now. They're going to shut down the schools. No one ever gets COVID from kids in school. So it's not about, and kids basically are fine with, there's very, very, very little risk to them. But we're going to shut down schools. Trump talked a lot about it during the briefing today, but it looks like this is where we're at. I mean, is it even possible for anyone to win an election when the public school system is shut down going into the election?
I'm torn because I've been wanting to shut down the public schools for decades now. So whatever it takes, I do love Trump's idea. I don't know how anyone disputes it. This isn't a political point. It's just a logical point that they're going to have, $1.5 billion that will go to the schools either for COVID prevention and whatever they need to do, pass out masks or whatever, or to the parents for homeschooling, for alternative arrangements, for parochial schools. The more kids can go to a school where they actually learn something, and it's not just babysitting mixed in with lessons on how white people suck. That's and America sucks. That's fantastic. And one other point that you were saying, which is true, kids, luckily, it's really an amazing thing. Unlike the Spanish flu, unlike so many flus, kids seem to be overwhelmingly immune to not only catching it, having symptoms, or passing it on. It's not just the benefits don't just end there. The more kids, the more young people who are, quote, infected, that's nature's vaccination. Then they don't get it, and once it's passed through, whether it's asymptomatic or not, you're creating herd immunity with all the young, healthy people. I think as I've said from the beginning, what we really need to with this is go pedal to the metal, protecting the vulnerable, and to some extent let the rest of us get herd immunity.
And I don't know if you've seen this. I mentioned it in the first hour about your comments on public schools. First off, there's a New York Times piece from, I think it was yesterday, the latest in school segregation. Private pandemic pod. So now if you get together to create, with other people, effectively like a homeschooling type situation, but with 5 or 10 kids at a time, that way parents can trade off. You're engaged in a form of segregation. That's point one, according to this education expert. And then there's a whole New York Times podcast they're releasing, Nice White Parents, saying the problem with the public school system is nice white parents getting too involved in their school districts. That seems to be the gist, the thrust. When is this beyond parody and too much?
I know. I thought the podcast was today, but I must say I exclusively read things online. So I just tweeted about it. I don't know if you saw out in Portland. There were these parents marching with their little toddlers. The kids must be like 2 or 3 years old. And the little kids are holding signs with obscenities on them. Yep. F the police, F Trump, F, this and that. So I commented, at least they're not like those nice white parents. The New York Times has determined is the source of all of society's ills. I'm almost tempted to listen to the podcast just to see what it is that nice white parents are doing.
I'm with you. They've kind of suckered me in. I'm like, I have to listen. This is actually, it's like the, rubbernecking with an accent. I'm like, I have to hear this. I have to check this out. We're speaking to Ann Coulter, everybody. You should check out AnnCoulter.com. Great column from her this week on what's going on in Portland. You and I both know Ann, who's just fearless by going out there, and they go after Andy specifically, these Antifa militants that hit him before they're vicious with him. Fortunately now these days, I guess everybody gets to wear a mask all the time, right? So at least it's a little harder to ID somebody. But
they're attacking other random Asian men.
I didn't know that, really. They think it's Andy.
Yeah. He's posted videos of random Asian guys who are trying to join the protest and get accused of being Andy No.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. He's like, it's like they've got wanted posters up, Antifa wanted posters looking for Andy No. What a bunch of lunatics. I didn't know that.
And incidentally, he, as far as I understand it, himself, I suspect, like Alex Berenson, the hero of the COVID science stories, I suspect he's moving right as he sees how liberals are treating him. But he's really just a journalist. He started off utterly apolitical. He wasn't coming out on one side or another, but he goes to cover these protests, and simply because he is filming them doing what they do, that's how he's become public enemy number one. And yes, that is not good for Antifa, for people to see what they're doing, which is why, as I describe in the column, you will not see it in the media. You will not read about it in the New York Times. I mean, it is stunning. If you follow Andy No on Twitter, and I recommend that everyone out there do so, he has dozens of new short videos. Just go down his Twitter feed. It's stunning what's going on out there. And then you tune into MSNBC or CNN or read the New York Times, and you just hear that they're peaceful protests with, occasional clashes with authority. No, they are lunatics. This is like Mao's China. It's unbelievable, the violence that's going on, mostly by mentally ill people, the fat girls, the skinny, all wearing all black Antifa boys who are half of them think they're women.
Andy No is also, I love this because he pointed out that the moms against police violence or whatever, the moms of Portland, they're this group, right, that shows up wearing yellow T-shirts that says moms. Andy said, I know these women. They're mostly not moms, and about half of them don't even identify as women. That's what he said. And he's being serious, by the way. He's actually being real. Like, that's the truth.
Yes. I love how in the mug shots, the police apparently just take down whatever these people say, and Andy will give the names they were born with and the genders they were born with, now identifies as man or woman or whichever one they're switching to. No, there are obviously a lot of very mentally ill people. And it is demonic. It is satanic what's going out there. It's terrifying. And that's why the media won't show it to you.
Yeah, and on that point about the media, I played some audio from Ted Wheeler, who showed up and had one of these, the mayor of Portland, and he showed up and he has his whole, let's have a conversation. They're screaming, all kinds of profanity at him. They know who he is. He's the mayor of their city. They're telling him to resign. He has coddled them in ways that, a normal human being would be horrified by. It's not enough for them. And the only thing you hear from the media is treating, and I mean this from members of, Democrat members of Congress, CNN, ABC is as bad as CNN. But I don't know when I just didn't notice that. ABC is as bad as the rest of them. All these big news organizations, they're focused on Trump sending in federal law enforcement officers as if, one, they're not already federal law enforcement officers there, and two, that's not completely acceptable. I mean, and are they that dumb that they don't understand how law enforcement functions, or is it just part of the blanket propaganda approach?
I think the media and the Democrats realize that they're going to be covered up for by the media. They can get away with anything. I mean, they have shut down the entire country with what Alex Berenson calls the panic porn. I mean, not that COVID isn't serious, but there are ways to deal with this without destroying our nation. And I'm stunned at how long this went on. I mean, when we first had the shutdown, remember it was supposed to be for 2 weeks? 2 weeks. I thought that was a great idea. Yeah, everybody stay home for 2 weeks. What has it been now, 6 months? And it's because they're hysterical. They can get away with anything. To see them, the first they have even acknowledged Portland, and this includes the New York Times, the formerly newspaper of record, now just white hatred every day. Even the New York Times has not reported at all on the clashes until federal troops showed up. And, as I describe in the article, or my column, this is what we've come to expect from Democrats. It was the same thing when President Eisenhower sent federal troops to walk black school children into Little Rock High School. Of course, the governor, the mayor, and the terrorists, the Democratic terrorists, the Klan. Originally, the Klan was formed to beat up and terrify Republicans during Reconstruction, and then branched out to terrorize black people. But the Democratic Party is the party of domestic terrorism, and Republican presidents have had to send in federal troops before. One thing that's sort of annoying me that I subtly indicated in the column is I keep seeing conservatives making this big point, including the administration, of we're just protecting the federal court. Nope, we don't care about. No, it's the president's job to suppress domestic insurrections. That is why we have a constitution rather than a loose confederation of states. It was because of a rebellion that George Washington had to reassemble his troops to go and put down, and our founding fathers realized, no, we're going to need a strong federal government, not only to repel foreign invasions, which, frankly, America doesn't have to worry about very much now other than on our southern border, but to suppress domestic insurrections. Look at these videos, and I promise you, Shays' rebellion, even the 1968 Democratic Convention, does not compare to what is going on in cities across America right now. I've been haranguing Trump on Twitter for not sending in federal law enforcement agents until now. So I cheer him on. They do not have to limit themselves. It wasn't a federal courthouse that Dwight Eisenhower sent the troops in. These are American citizens. They have a right to, that is the citizens of these cities, they have a right to peaceably assemble. You can't do that when Antifa's there. They have a right to free speech. You can't do that when Antifa's there. They have a right to engage in commerce. Constitutional rights, constitutional guarantees are being defied by these mobs, these rioters, and that's the president's first job, not to be, randomly bombing Syria.
And, what do you think the media elites, I mean, you're speaking about, and I couldn't agree more, that the expectation the Democrats have, they'll just get away with anything. I mean, some of the stuff that has been said by Democrat mayors about federal law enforcement who all have headquarters and jurisdiction and lots of personnel and often work side by side, and I mean, cubicle by cubicle, car by car, and I was part of one of these efforts in New York, so I know they're acting like it's a foreign invading army. It's recklessly stupid, the stuff that's being said by mayors like de Blasio. Oh, I'm going to take him to court. Lightfoot is acting like in Chicago she can block the FBI from showing. She has no power to do these things. What are the elites? I mean, what do the Stephanopoulos and the Tapper and the New York Times editorial page or even the newsroom, forget about that. Do they not think that these Antifa people are total lunatics, or are they really down with this? That's what I want to know.
That's a very good question. They are certainly giving the impression that they support the rioters and Antifa. I've been thinking for the last few weeks. I mean, a lot of these cities are simply destroyed, the way Detroit was destroyed by riots in the 60s. New York is the one city, I hope, but the one, I wish they could all come back, but I suspect that New York would come back for precisely the reason you just mentioned. Journalists, the media, the elites, Wall Street, oh, well, Ferguson's gone, oh, well, Portland's gone, kind of like to visit there, never really was going to go to Ferguson. But New York City, that's their neighborhood. So I don't think they're going to put up with this crap in New York City. And as I've said before, I wish Ray Kelly would run for mayor. If not Ray Kelly, then a strong law and order mayor like him. I really think, I don't care how much the New York Times denounces him, I think liberals will go out and quietly vote for the next law and order mayoral candidate.
Yeah, I think that there will be a silent majority in New York if we keep having triple the homicide rate that we're used to from last year. I think people are going to say, yeah, enough of that. I hope we can get our city back. And Coulter.com, everybody. Dems, the Antifa party, her column this week. Ms. Coulter, thank you so much as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Good to talk to you, Buck. Bye-bye.
We will make America great again.